Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Thursday, June 12th, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. And boy, do we got a lot to talk about today. Double-digit visit weekends nearly everywhere. Some of these visits taking place this weekend are going to shape the way this class finishes up, and we are going to break it all down for you guys. But before we get going, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. Speaking of the best, let's bring in Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, we're going to talk Texas Longhorns. They are on the move up to number 11. I think it was a couple weeks ago they were at number 18, and we warned people this is not where Texas is going to finish. Now up to 11, and this weekend we got 20 official visitors in Austin. So break it down for us. Who are the headliners?
Well, this is a weekend where we could start talking about Texas and their push for the number one class again. They finished number one last cycle, taking it from Georgia at the finish line, beating them for five-star defensive lineman Justice Terry, a Peach State product, and locking in the number one class in the country. Can they go into the state of Georgia again, and this time beat Alabama, Florida State, Ohio State for the number two linebacker in the country, Xavier Griffin? They absolutely could. Alabama leads on the On3 RPM as far as my prediction goes, but certainly would not be surprised if he ended up in Austin. One source saying to me, I don't know if the other schools can be as competitive as what Texas is prepared to do in this recruitment for Xavier Griffin. You also have five-star offensive tackle Felix Ojo, the number one recruit in the state, visiting the Texas Longhorns with his official. My On3 RPM is on Texas, but Ohio State, Michigan, Florida, some of the other programs in the equation for Felix Ojo. So another opportunity for Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, and the Longhorns to get Felix Ojo back in Austin. Remind him why he's so comfortable. Felix Ojo has said in the past, Texas was setting the pace. I still like where they stand, but the competition has stiffened here in official visit season. Josh, there's quite a few more names to know. How about Samuel Rosenborough? He's an On300 offensive lineman, top 100 recruit from Clearwater, Florida, visiting Texas this weekend. And I'm starting to hear some Longhorns buzz in favor of Samuel Rosenborough. Texas A&M's involved. But Texas seems to be where the pulse is heading for the ballyhooed offensive tackle from the Sunshine State. Some key defensive linemen visiting this weekend that Texas is in the top 2 or 3 for. Bryce Perry Wright from Buford, Georgia. You have Jake Kroll from IMG Academy. I liked where Oklahoma stood going into official visit season for Jake Kroll, but I probably would have put Texas in the 2-hole. He's been on some really good visits to Florida, Ole Miss, and Ohio State. But Texas is up this weekend. And then Bodney Cleveland is another prospect, defensive tackle from Alabama, that the Longhorns are in a really good spot for. And they've been on the gas with 4-star edge Dre Quinn. Clemson's starting to pick up steam there, but this is a guy that Texas really covets. 2 more big names to mention this weekend. You have Jalen Lott, a coveted athlete, recruit, receiver, could also play in the secondary, an explosive guy that's going to do track and field on the next level. My On3 RPM went to Oregon in the spring, but I'm hearing more Texas buzz right now. LSU and USC had him for official visits. Texas this weekend, Oregon next weekend for Jalen Lott. The On3 RPM favors Texas. My pick may be joining some of those older picks for Texas. We'll see how these next 2 weekends shape up. And then Samari Matthews is an On300 cornerback recruit. Texas in the spring, their visit blew him away. They went from maybe the 3 or 4 hole into the 1 or 2 hole for Samari Matthews. So we'll see what that recruitment looks like coming out of his official visit to Texas.
All right. We got some big ones on campus this weekend. Do you think there's any way that Texas could close it out with Felix Ojo, or is he such a big prospect that he's going to have his own commitment date?
Well, this is the last scheduled official visit for Felix Ojo right now. Could he just pop for Texas? Nothing would surprise me, but I think just the magnitude of his recruitment, the interest level in his process. This is a type of young man that has an announcement date with an announcement. Am I right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I kind of felt that way, but he is winding down these visits, so it's really interesting. How about Xavier Griffin? I mean, this is a recruitment that I felt was trending heavily in Alabama's direction, still could be. but he's expressed some interest in other programs, and this weekend it's going to be Texas. You think Texas has a real shot here to kind of turn the tide of this one?
Well, two things that Xavier Griffin's really talked about regarding his official visits to Ohio State and Alabama were the brotherhoods of both programs, getting around the players, feeling like he really vibed with those guys. They were like-minded. He liked the cultures in the locker room, likes the way that those coaching staffs develop their players, the tone they set for the atmosphere and environment around the program. So that's going to be something that's going to be real important with this Texas official visit. Again, certainly we're in the NIL era. I know we're in the rev sharing era, but I don't think that's going to be much of a factor in the recruitment of Xavier Griffin. If you've made it to this point in the process, again, I think this is a young man that's going to command a healthy opportunity off the field along with on the field. And Texas hasn't even been able to fire all their shots yet in this recruitment. But Alabama is the program when he decommitted from USC, I thought was setting the pace. My on-3 RPM reflects that. He had a fantastic visit to Tuscaloosa. He's got family in the area. It's close to home. And again, felt extremely comfortable around the program. But it's Texas's turn. And they were Heartbreak U for some programs on the cycle in 2025. Will they do the same here in 2026? And Florida State's still shooting their shot for Xavier Griffin as well.
For sure. All right, Longhorn fans, talk to Steve and I. Who do you think's the most important recruit on campus, and who do you think Texas lands? Let us know. Let's talk Notre Dame recruiting, as the Irish are up to number 4 in the On3 industry rankings. And this weekend, some vitally important recruits on campus. Steve, who are the headliners?
This is the type of weekend for Marcus Freeman and his staff where if they can land the majority of these guys, they have a chance to have top 5 staying power for the 2026 recruiting cycle. Let's start with some guys that I already have on 3 RPMs for in favor of the Irish coming into the weekend. That's number 5 safety Joey O'Brien, coveted Lone Star State receiver Caden Finley, on 300 tight end Evan Jacobson, and then safety Nick Reddish. What's the pulse on those guys? Well, Joey O'Brien, it's been a fluid recruitment. He's already taken officials to Clemson and Oregon, loved both experiences, and there's some people that spent time with them on each trip that feel like those programs are in great position. But Notre Dame's been a front runner for a long time in this recruitment, from what Mike Mickens has done in developing the secondary to that relationship. Notre Dame, proximity to home, proximity to family from Pennsylvania. It's an exciting opportunity. He's one of their top targets regardless of position. You see the Kyle Hamilton comparisons with Joey O'Brien. Who wouldn't be excited about being compared to the all-pro talent with the Baltimore Ravens? Caden Finley, my on 3 RPMs on Notre Dame. Texas is considered the main competition. I still like the Irish coming into this weekend. Okay. Arizona State, Texas A&M, some other contenders. Evan Jacobson, fresh off a great official to Texas A&M. He's been to the Aggies campus like 6 times now. And then Stanford is in that recruitment for Evan Jacobson. Nick Reddish, I'm not as bullish on that on-3 pick as I was. We'll see if Notre Dame reclaims some of that momentum coming out of this weekend. A new prediction coming into the weekend. Mike Singer, our Blue and Gold Illustrated insider, and myself, we like where Notre Dame stands with tight end Preston Freisel out of Toledo Catholic, Central Catholic. He visited Notre Dame last week. He visited Miami last week. Iowa's another contender in there. But I like where Notre Dame stands. He's coming back to South Bend this weekend. Grayson McHugh, he is one of the most coveted offensive tackles in the country. Penn State, Texas round out the top 3. Notre Dame is way in this one. His visit this weekend, getting around the players, seeing how he fits in with the guys. But Notre Dame right there with Penn State and Texas for Grayson McHugh. Kerry Adams is on 3's number 3 cornerback in the country. Notre Dame, they're one of the favorites coming in. Wouldn't be surprised if they're the favorite coming out. His family loves South Bend. Marcus Freeman, Mike Mickens, the coaching staff, all the opportunities on and off the field, the success. Notre Dame's got a lot going for it in the recruitment of Kerry Adams. Again, I would not be surprised if they weren't the leader coming out of the weekend. And then 2 receivers to know. Braden Robinson from Texas, Devin Fitzgerald, the son of Larry Fitzgerald from Arizona. They're on campus. Braden Robinson's coming down to Notre Dame and Miami. This is a big visit. And Devin Fitzgerald, he knows a lot of guys at Notre Dame, recruits, players. The opportunity from the Irish program is one that he really wanted. Now he has it. Clemson is in there, North Carolina, Stanford, UCLA. But Notre Dame is in an interesting position for the NFL legacy recruit, Devin Fitzgerald.
couple guys I want to talk to you about. We don't normally talk about the commitments on here, but I think one's worth talking about. Thomas Davis Jr., linebacker commitment, was at Georgia last weekend. So it seems like a great time for the Irish to get him back. Did Georgia get a foot in the door there?
Well, obviously that's a program that he grew up rooting for. His dad's a legend in Athens, and Georgia saw him work out, offered him a scholarship, brought him in. He was definitely intrigued. He was honest with Notre Dame. Notre Dame knew that visit was happening. Sometimes in this recruiting era, guys just pop up on campus and you had no idea that your commit was going to be somewhere. Right. So we'll see, man. I mean, he's got a lot of opportunities. The school he grew up rooting for, the school that invested a lot in him, that's having a ton of success. Marcus Freeman and company, a lot of NFL legacy guys go to Notre Dame and flourish. Yep. So we'll see. Big weekend. Glad you brought him up.
Yeah. All right. Two more that I want to talk about is Joey O'Brien and Caden Finley, because prior to last week, I probably thought Notre Dame was in prime position for each. O'Brien goes to Oregon, has great things to say about it. Caden Finley at Texas. Mm-hmm. So where do you think the Irish stand with these two as we head into this massive visit weekend?
Well, Finley's going to be one where you're just O'Brien's going to be one where you're just trying to get the final conversation, the final opportunity. He's so high on his finalists, and he's having a tough time getting it down to one. But Notre Dame has been the outright leader in that recruitment, and I still feel okay about my prediction. And then Finley, I feel good about my prediction in favor of Notre Dame. He's Notre Dame's top wide receiver target. He knows it. It's maybe the most important position of need for the Irish program in this cycle. An opportunity for him to come in as a day one player of a program of this magnitude with a quarterback like CJ Carr perhaps, or Kenny Minchey. It's going to be an exciting opportunity. And so I just like where Notre Dame stands. And then Notre Dame's one of those programs where they take care of their players and they have opportunities off the field for great branding. And so they can go toe to toe in that arena. We've seen them do that in the transfer portal, particularly at quarterback. So I think they got the ammunition, the battle for these guys, and we'll see how it shakes out.
All right. Notre Dame fans, talk to us. Massively important visit weekend. Who do you think the Irish stand a good chance to land? Let us know. Let's talk Michigan, because the Wolverines, they are hot right now and they're heating up at the right time. Beginning of summer is when you want to kind of strike it, and Michigan is right there. In this weekend, number one running back, Savion Hyder, is on campus. Steve, he's been around. He's been at Georgia last weekend, been to Tennessee on an unofficial. He's been to Ohio State. But this weekend, it's Michigan. And early on, I'm talking like 5 or 6 months ago, I was ready to pencil him into Michigan's class, but there's a lot more competition right now.
First time back at Michigan since watching the Wolverines beat Michigan State last fall. I think Michigan's one of the front runners alongside Tennessee for Savion Hyder as we go down the stretch of his recruitment. Georgia and Ohio State round out the top four. Michigan is a program that we know has been at the top of the list for a long time. Great relationship with Tony Alford and the staff, loves the style of play. And if this recruitment becomes an arms race, Michigan's going to be there till the end for that as well. So I think Savion Hyder, Michigan checks a lot of boxes for him. He's got Tennessee next weekend. But the Wolverines have always been one to watch in this recruitment, and getting them back on campus, this is their top overall target. If they were drafting players in the 2026 class with the first round pick in the on-3 recruiting draft, the Michigan Wolverines select Savion Hyder. That's how much they love this young man and how important he is to what they're trying to do in 2026.
All right, Steve. So big visit weekend up there in Ann Arbor. Who do Michigan fans need to keep an eye on?
Well, these next 2 weekends are going to be massive for Michigan, particularly next weekend. But this weekend, they have the interior offensive lineman, John Turntime, back on campus. Michigan has a lot of the things he's looking for. Salisi Moa is the number 2 athlete. Michigan's one of the front runners in his recruitment. Chase Calicut, they're trying to make a move on Texas, Georgia, and some others, but they've always been one of his favorites. Washington's in there. I think Michigan's in a really good spot for on 300 receiver Travis Johnson. Wouldn't be surprised if he ultimately ends up in Michigan's class. You got a few touted linebackers, Anthony Davis, DQ Forkpa, and Kenneth Goodwin all in. Wouldn't be surprised if they landed Kenneth Goodwin out of California. A couple guys in the secondary of note, Andre Clark, Jordan Deck. I think Michigan could make a big move for Andre Clark this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're on the gas for Jordan Deck. I think they'll ultimately land Jordan Deck out of the Lone Star State. Ben Boulware is a defensive lineman that they're in the middle of it for. So Michigan, they got the number 15 ranked recruiting class. Got a couple big recruiting weekends coming up. Savion Hyder's the headliner this weekend, but there's a lot of talent on campus, and I don't think the Wolverines are going to strike out on everybody.
Let's talk Oregon recruiting, and it isn't summer unless there's 5 stars on campus in Eugene, and that's exactly what we got this weekend. Headlined by 5-star quarterback Ryder Lyon. Steve, what do you make of this visit?
Well, my on 3 RPM's on Oregon. Obviously,
Yeah.
BYU is the other program that you have a keen eye on in this recruitment. And as it ebbs and flows, my confidence in Oregon's position wavers to a certain degree. But I think that Oregon is the one to beat for Ryder Lyons going into his official visit. He's been there numerous times. So I think this visit is more about connecting him with people around the program, showing him how powerful these folks are around Eugene and how helpful they can be for their athletes that choose to play football at Oregon and the benefits that you have on and off the field. You know, obviously, what Oregon's done on the field speaks for itself. They're the defending Big Ten champs. Their offense is among the most prolific in college football. Their last 2 quarterbacks have been Heisman finalists. Bo Nix took the NFL by storm, a first-round draft pick ready to go. Will Stein's recruited him as hard as anybody in the country. And Ryder Lyon said in the spring, Oregon's the program recruiting him the hardest. So getting back on campus, connecting with more people around the program, we'll see where it stands coming out of the trip.
All right. Now, he's not the only one. Anthony Tank Jones. And Anthony Tank Jones, I thought this was going to be an Alabama-Auburn battle, but it seems like he's opened it up to more teams. And this weekend, it's Oregon.
Well, Texas A&M's an out-of-state program that we've always heard of in the Anthony Tank Jones recruitment. He was in Aggieland last weekend. Miami's a program that got an official visit, and they've made some moves with Tank Jones as well. But Oregon's kind of that program that's been in a sneaky position battling Alabama and Auburn. They're more than a dark horse. He's been to campus before. And so I'm interested to see where this thing stands coming out of the OV.
Steve, who else should Duck fans keep an eye on this weekend?
Well, Oregon is still looking to shore up their room in the secondary. They haven't given up on guys like Albert Hill, committed to USC, but Davon Benjamin is target numero uno. He's on 3's number 1 ranked corner in the country. My on 3 RPM favors Oregon. Now, he's been on great official visits to Michigan and Texas, but getting him back to Eugene, reminding him why they've been considered one of the favorites for much of his process is big. And I like where Oregon stands. Davon Benjamin's a big visitor this weekend. So is Kelvin Obot, on 3's number 3 offensive tackle. He's already taken an official visit to Nebraska and Utah. Has Michigan coming up, but Oregon's a program that he's always been high on. Devin Jackson's a 4-star defensive back. Bo Jandro is a linebacker from Arizona. And then Deuce Gerald's a disruptive defensive lineman from Georgia. Some of the other marquee visitors for Oregon this weekend.
Another weekend, another big visit weekend in Gainesville as the Gators look to capitalize. Steve, a couple 5 stars on campus, including Caden Prothro, who we felt good about Georgia, but this weekend, UF's going to take their shot.
No question. He's actually still on Auburn's campus as we record this Wiltfong Whiparound. Like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. So he's seeing schools, talking to other programs. Texas is in there. Till I hear differently, I would give the edge to Georgia. But it's Florida's turn to swing at one of the nation's best, Caden Prothro, this weekend.
All right. So, Steve, there's an interesting flip target on campus. We're talking linebacker Isaiah Williams, a one-time commit of 4 different schools, but currently Ole Miss, and one of those 4 schools was the Florida Gators. So are you surprised to see him back in Gainesville this weekend?
Absolutely not. He's always loved Florida. Even prior to his first commitment to Florida, he was trending heavy to Florida back in the fall, I believe. He loves Florida, loves that coaching staff, the opportunity, the direction of the program. So Florida still being in the picture does not surprise me. Georgia is in there as well, Colorado, Florida State, to name some of the others. So Isaiah Williams, people are going to recruit him to the finish line, and we'll see where the chips fall.
All right. Who else should Gator fans be aware of on campus this weekend?
Well, a couple more official visitors I want to highlight. The number 1 defensive lineman in the On3 rankings, James J.J. Johnson. I like where Georgia stands. He was at Miami last week in a great visit, but now it's Florida's turn. Trenton Henderson's an edge rusher from in-state that tells me Florida and LSU are his top 2. He's already taken his official to LSU, so Florida with a chance to leapfrog the Tigers here and pull away. Kendall Gerville is an in-state 4-star defensive lineman that maybe I'd give the edge to Texas for right now. but Florida Gators in the middle of that one. 4-star linebacker Malik Morris is an important target. My on-3 RPM's on the Gators, but Texas A&M making me nervous about that pick. So we'll see what UF can do this weekend. They're chipping away at Carson Snead, a 4-star tight end committed to Tennessee. 2 unofficial visitors are as important of prospects on campus as anyone, Josh. It's 4-star defensive lineman Jeraylin McCoy. It's 4-star running back Carson Baker. My on-3 RPM is on the Gators for both, following each of their official visits to campus earlier this summer. Can the Gators get it done? Can they add them to a class? They're chipping away at getting into the top 25. They had a top 10 class last year. Jeraylin McCoy, Carson Baker is one of the most explosive, physically imposing running backs in the class. Those would be 2 big pickups for the Gators. I love my predictions for UF right now for those 2.
Let's talk some Auburn recruiting, as they've got a couple in-state 5-stars on campus, including Cedarian Morgan and Xavier Crowell. Steve, what's it looking like for the Tigers this weekend?
Well, I would say Auburn's chances are better with Cedarian Morgan than Xavier Crowell, but you shoot your shot with both and see what happens. And Crowell said a lot of nice things about Auburn. He's been there a bunch in his process. Same with Morgan. I have both predicted to Alabama right now, so I think Auburn needs to make up ground with each of these prospects. But crazier things have happened on the trail, as you know, Josh, and Auburn is a program that can get hot at any point.
All right. How about Devin Carter back on campus? The Auburn commitment was back at Florida State. He was a one-time commitment of Florida State, and his dad was a star for the Seminoles in the late 80s. So is this a critical visit if Auburn's going to hold on to Devin Carter?
Yeah, I think so. He was also recently at Georgia, so he's got the door open and listening to other opportunities, dotting I's, crossing T's. Committed to Auburn back in January. Loves the way that they've recruited the quarterbacks, the trajectory of the program. But as he's worked his way through his process, there's more buzz around FSU right now. So Auburn looking to put all that to bed.
All right. Another 5-star on campus, Braylon Womack. You know, he's been trending to Ohio State, but he hasn't committed, and he is now going to be on the Plains this weekend. Can the Tigers get in this one?
Well, I think Texas A&M's got some steam to them coming out of his visit to College Station last weekend, so I certainly wouldn't sleep on the Aggies. And Florida gave him a great official visit 2 weekends ago. So Auburn, his sister plays softball there. He's been on campus a ton, likes DJ Durkin and that coaching staff. I think that they need to make a move this weekend, but he's always had a keen eye on Auburn. And they actually leapfrog some schools to get into this position to get an official visit.
All right. Now, one more prospect. He's taking a midweek. Caden Prothro, who we feel is trending to Georgia. What do you make of his midweek visit to Auburn?
Well, I think there's some confidence around Auburn that they can make a move here and ultimately land Caden Prothro. Now, I still love my on-3 RPM in favor of Auburn for another 4-star tight end and Xavier Tiller. But I think in the Caden Prothro sweepstakes, you got to look at them as one of the biggest challengers to Georgia.
And then you got Landon Duckworth. Now, this isn't an official visit, but it is an unofficial visit. And he is going to be on campus, who one time we thought was trending to Ole Miss, then back to South Carolina. But this weekend, it's Auburn shot.
Well, as our colleague Hayes Fawcett reported on Wednesday night at halftime of the Pacers game, Landon Duckworth is down to Auburn and South Carolina. My on-3 RPM is on the Gamecocks, but he is visiting Auburn, expected to arrive on Thursday and stay into Saturday. He's got a good relationship with Deuce Knight, several members on the coaching staff. And Auburn, you know, Coach Austin, Kenyatta Watson, Coach Derek Nix, some of the guys he's built a rapport with. He likes Auburn's offense and the way they utilize quarterbacks of his skill set. Hugh Freeze, they get a chance to make a move this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if he made one more visit to South Carolina before making a final decision. He took his official visit to South Carolina last weekend. I still like my prediction in favor of the Gamecocks. They just got to clear this visit to Auburn this weekend.
5 stars on the road. Steve, let's start with number 1 wide receiver, Tristan Keys. He is committed to LSU, but he's been taking visits. Where do you expect Keys to pop up this weekend?
Tennessee. He told me he'll be in Knoxville this weekend. Now, he was supposed to be at Auburn earlier this week and canceled that visit. So he's expected at Tennessee this weekend. There were times where Tennessee has looked like the leader for Tristan Keys. He's committed to LSU. He has said it's going to take a lot to flip him from LSU. LSU's getting the official visit next weekend. But there is some buzz at Texas A&M and Miami are making things interesting for Tristan Keys. We'll see what that means for Tennessee coming out of this weekend.
Yeah, he's made a bunch of visits to Miami this offseason, so we'll keep an eye on that one. How about number one interior offensive lineman Darius Gray? Made a midweek visit to Ohio State. He's got LSU this weekend. Where do you see this one going?
My on 3 RPMs on LSU, and I still like the Tigers. LSU's a program that offensive line is one of the focal points for this program as they put the finishing touches on a class that has a chance to finish number 1. They're currently sitting at number 2, but they're trending for offensive tackle Emmanuel Tucker, who's going to announce his college commitment on the On 3 YouTube channel at 5 p.m. today. Hit like and subscribe. Tune into his announcement. I like where LSU stands there. And then they're in the thick of this one for Darius Gray. I think they're the leader, trying to hold off the likes of South Carolina, Clemson, Ohio State, Tennessee for Darius Gray, but a big official visit. And then Bryson Cooley's also visiting LSU this weekend. He's an offensive lineman from Mississippi that I think LSU's in great position for. Him and Zayden Krempin out of the Lone Star State. So going to be a special offensive line class for LSU. Who could they land? Manny Iannaccio. He's at Penn State this weekend, Josh. I know you were about to ask me about him, but it's the perfect segue into Iannaccio, who's taking his official visit to Penn State this weekend. LSU and Oregon are the top 2. Going to be at Oregon next weekend for his official visit, but LSU gave him a great OV 2 weekends ago. Penn State's a program he's always had a keen eye on. I think they got to make up ground on the Ducks and the Tigers. But he'll be on campus at Penn State this weekend. But LSU, they're a program to watch with Iannaccio as well.
All right, let's move on to Tyler Atkinson. We talk about him so much on this channel. Number 1 linebacker out of the state of Georgia. Where's he going to be this weekend?
Well, Atkinson is coming off a terrific official visit to Oregon, got to spend more time with Dan Lanning. Tosh Lupoy and that staff loves their defensive mindset and the way they develop players. Oregon is a major player for Tyler Atkinson. So is Ohio State. Would not be surprised if we see him schedule an official visit to Columbus on June 20th. He's already been there several times. They've been one of the favorites, but so's Auburn. Maybe he's on the plains next week sometime as well for an official visit, but he's already been to Clemson, and now he's at Georgia this weekend. Georgia's been the perceived favorite for much of Tyler Atkinson's process. NIL is certainly a factor in this recruitment, but Georgia, the way that they've developed linebackers, the way they play defense, the culture, the history, the stage they play on. He's been on campus numerous times. This is a big official visit. We'll see where Georgia stands coming out of it. I've liked Georgia the majority of this process for Tyler Atkinson, but Ohio State, Auburn, Clemson, Oregon, all giving him plenty to think about as well.
Yeah, giving me a lot to think about because I got no clue where Tyler Atkinson's going to go. Speaking of visits, Brandon Arrington has been racking up the frequent flyer miles this offseason, and he's going to be on the move again. Where's he going to be this weekend?
He's going to be at Alabama. I think Texas A&M leads. He's coming off a good trip to Oregon. They're one of the front runners in this recruitment as well. Alabama's got to make a move on the Ducks and the Aggies this weekend. 1 5-star, I don't think the Aggies, or 1 5-star, I don't think the Crimson Tide have to make a move for, though, is Jira Edwards logged in on 3 RPM in favor of Alabama this week, coming out of his official visit last weekend to Tuscaloosa. Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, the top 3 there. I like where Alabama stands. That will do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Please hit like and subscribe to the On 3 Recruits page, and we will be back next week breaking down the biggest visits and recruiting happenings on the Wiltfong Whiparound.